They might work really hard, and most times they do, but they're in the wrong situation from day one. And they're set up for failure. And all of these things could have been avoided by following what I'm going to walk you through. Welcome to lesson 3 of this 3-part masterclass. So glad to have you here. This masterclass is giving you amazing foundations to help serve you for your career. And just to recap what's been covered in the 2 previous lessons. First lesson that you went through is helping you get clarity on what your current state is, because you can't attack your goals if you're first not clear on where you're starting from. And not just in your career, but in all aspects of your life. Because it's not just about having a good career, it's about making the most of this thing called life. So that was lesson 1. Lesson 2 is helping you break down a daunting and overwhelming quota that's put in your lap so that you can create an action plan so that you can execute every single day and lower your stress and anxiety and get to your numbers and be at the top of the leaderboard. So there's a ton of value in those, a lot of exercises. If you haven't watched them yet, pause this, go back, because there's incredible value, and this is going to build on those lessons that you learned there. But today, I'm really excited for this lesson that I'm going to walk you through, and it's all about helping you find your dream job. And notice how I say dream job and not just job, because let me share a couple of stats to you that are really alarming. 1, roughly 3 out of 4 sales reps are missing quota right now. And a lot of times, it's not because their fault. They might work really hard, and most times they do, but they're in the wrong situation from day one. And they're set up for failure. And all of these things could have been avoided by following what I'm going to walk you through. Number 2, something for you to know is roughly 30 to 40% of sales reps every single year turn over at a company. So it's not a question of if you're going to need to look for a next job, it's when. So hopefully this is going to serve you so that when that time comes for you, you're going to put yourself in the best position possible for long-term success. And then number 3, and this is the scariest thing, there was a recent survey done by Gallup. And when I say recent, it was just published July 2023, so it's brand new. And it said 85% of employees aren't fully engaged at work. So that tells me that 85% of people aren't energized coming into work every day. And that hurts because that means they're not doing something that's aligned with their purpose and their mission. And that's just going to lead to an unfulfilled life, which is very disheartening to hear. So hopefully with these lessons, this will help you not only find a job, but find your dream job that energizes you and helps you make the most of life. So I'm going to get right into it. It's a 3-step process that's going to help you identify the right companies, how to research them, and how to work them to get the job. So the first thing you're going to do, I'm going to walk through this in detail, is you're going to write your job description. You are going to write your described job description for your dream job. Next is I'm going to give you tips and tricks and tools that are free that you can use right now to qualify and create your list of target companies. And then number 3, I'm going to teach you how to land the job. What are the steps in the process, how to think about the process. Because if you're watching this and you've been impacted by layoffs, or you might have a fear for layoffs coming to your company, it's happening all across the board. I'm sure you're stressed. Your anxiety levels must be through the roof. And I've been in your position. It's tough. But what this does is that I'm going to walk you through is help you take some of the emotions out of the process so that you can find the best job for you and your family to succeed. So let's start in helping you write your own job description. So this is where a lot of people make the mistake. They Google best companies to work for. They're on LinkedIn, and what I want you to do is put all that crap away for now, because all it's going to do is distract you and send you in the wrong direction. Before you put a list of companies together, the first thing you have to do is you need to write your own job description so that you can properly assess which companies fit into your criteria. Because it's about you being selfish of what's best for you, not what's best for that company. Because that's how it creates a win-win. So these are the things that I want you to do in order, and this is the exercise, write this down, in order to do this, because it's going to help you build the job description so that you're excited about it. Number one is, what do you need? And what I mean by what do you need at this stage in your career? If you're really early in your journey, you're probably going to need a lot more coaching and infrastructure. You may need a supportive environment, right? What do you need in where you're at in this career, this point of your career? Because that's going to help feed into all this other criteria. So just write down a couple of sentences. Hey, what do I need at this stage of my career? Next thing you're going to do is you're going to ask, what type of role do you want? If you're working in sales, there's a lot of different types of sales roles. Being an account executive where you're selling new business and you're a hunter is very different than if you're an account executive and you're a farmer, which means you're only selling to existing customers. Some people call that an account manager, right? Knowing the different roles and what excites you, if you're someone that gets excited about chasing the deal and hunting, you're going to want to go towards that role. And if you're a hunter that ends up in a farmer role, you're not going to be happy. So what type of role do you want? There's roles where you're what's called a core account executive, where you're the primary account owner if you're selling enterprise large deals. And then there's product specialists, or what we call them at Salesforce with co-primes, where they're specialists. So those are different types of roles, otherwise known as overlays. So it's understanding what type of role that you want so that when you show up to work every day, you're excited about it. So what's the role that I want? Next is, what am I looking for in a CEO? Because the CEO sets the tone for the entire organization. So think about the criteria that you're looking for in a CEO. Now, at different stages of your career, you're going to be looking for different things. If you're early in your career, you're probably going to be looking for a proven CEO that knows how to build an executive team around him, build the right processes, the infrastructure, because that trickles down to you to help you grow and develop, because you got to build your foundation if you're early in your career. If you're more senior in your career, you might be looking for an up-and-coming CEO that is looking for someone to come in with the expertise, and you could be more a partner to them versus another cog in the wheel. So just understanding, what type of CEO do you want? Do you want a CEO that's more product-focused? Do you want a CEO that comes from a selling background? Do you want a CEO that's very socially active, both on social media or even in social issues? Let's be real, that's comes to the territory in 2023. Or do you want ones that are more conservative and sharing their beliefs and views? Nothing wrong with either of these, but just know what's best for you, because all of this impacts your experience. So taking a step lower is, what type of boss do you want to work for? Now, this is going to be harder to research up front. I'll explain that in a few minutes. But do you want a boss that's really hands-on? Do you want a boss that's very direct and blunt with you and tells you just, really when you suck, that they say you suck, or they're not sugarcoating it? Or what's the communication style that you want from your boss? Do you want a boss that gives you a lot of autonomy? There's different styles for different types of people. So think about the type of boss that you want to work for, because a lot of times when people quit companies, a lot of them are not quitting the company, they're quitting their boss. And I've been in situations where I've had a boss that I didn't see eye to eye with. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a great human being, very good at his job, but we didn't align in our views, and that had a big impact on my work experience. So I don't want you to have the same. So understand, what type of boss do you want to work for, and write that into their job description. What's really important is, what type of product you want to sell. Now, when I think about the product that you want to sell, this is really important, because the product that you sell can make or break your success. If you're in sales, you can only sell as good as the solution that you have in front of you, right? And I'll give you an example. If I give you a pill and I say, hey, this pill is $1,000, and this pill is going to help you feel a little better, you might have a little bit happier day, and you might get a little bit more done. And you say, well, is that worth $1,000? I don't know, maybe to some people. But what if that same person comes to you and say, hey, I have this pill and it's $1,000. And the reason why I'm reaching out to you is because you have stage 4 cancer. And for this $1,000, this pill has a 98% success rate of killing cancer altogether. You're going to do that because it's a no-brainer. Many sales reps sign up to sell products that are what I call supplements, which is example 1, versus, and they set up for failure because the product is being positioned as a need to have, but it's really a nice to have. So know how good your product is that you want to sell. That's the first part of the product. And I'll show you a second how to check out how good the product is. Number 2 is the product that you sell has an impact to the buyer that you sell to. So I'll give you an example. My first job out of college, I was selling to engineers. And I really struggle with it because they have a specific type of communication style that just doesn't align with me, and it wasn't enjoyable for me to work with them. So it made it way harder for me to be successful. And I did terrible my first job out of college. I don't hide from my failures, right? But think about the buyer that you want to work with. Selling to sales is different than selling to HR, which is different than selling to IT, right? Think about the people that you enjoy communicating the most with, and also the people that you might have the most expertise selling to. If you have 12 years of experience selling to IT, know that there's going to be a massive learning curve if you're going to transition to selling to marketing, right? It's a different buyer. Doesn't mean you can't be successful, but know that these are factors to consider. So understand your buyer. So after your product, you want to know what stage company do you want to work at. You know, a lot of people that are watching this are probably in the technology industry. In the technology industry, there's a very big difference between selling at a public company that's Fortune 500 because they have built out processes, they have playbooks that work, right? And you're really just executing what they put in front of you, versus selling at a Series A startup that's still trying to figure out how to sell the product or solution. There's nothing wrong with both scenarios. It's what do you need at this point in your career? So that goes into the stage. The environment in a 50-person company is very different than a 5,000-person company. So how big of a company do you want to work for? Do you want to work at a company that's venture-backed, or do you want a company that's privately owned? Right? These are factors that you may want to consider when you think about writing your job description, because it'll help you get laser focused on the companies that fit into your criteria here. So think about that. What size company do you want to work at? Culture. What type of culture do you want to be in? There's different types of cultures, and not every culture is created equal, right? But it's really just what's the best for you. Do you want to be in a culture that might be a little bit more laid back? Or do you want to be in a culture that's more intense? There's nothing wrong with either, but what do you think is best for you? And what do you need at this point in your career? Most importantly, money. What do you want your compensation to be? And be specific about this, because when you're not clear on your compensation, you might sell for less than what you're worth. So take a couple minutes and really outline what you believe you're worth right now. A great way to accelerate your earnings is just being more aggressive at the compensation that you're targeting. Anytime I ever made a move in my career, I never settled for less than a 30-40% bump in my compensation, because anything less than that, unless I was in a toxic situation, would have been a poor move on my part, right? And that's how I think. How you think might be a little different, but don't sell yourself short, right? So that's how you write your job description. So if you want to pause the video now and write it, feel free. But we're going to move on to how to build your list and do the right research. So now that you have your job description for your dream job, now we look at how do we build a list of target companies. Now, the reason why I say build a list of target companies is this is how you start to take the emotions out of the process. Because where a lot of people struggle, and the big reason why a lot of people make bad career moves is because they don't do these next steps. They might do this right here, but they don't build a target list and work the list, and I'll show you how to do that. And what happens is they end up getting to the finish line with one company, and they have no other companies that they're talking to because they only had one company on their list. And because of that, you know, the red flags that they see were like, I don't really like how that CEO communicated the meeting, or like, you know, the demo seemed a little off when I was going through the interview process. And when I asked them questions around how they onboard and enable people, I didn't really get a great answer. Those are all major red flags. But if that's all you have, and unfortunately, if you were laid off and you're a little desperate, for lack of a better term, you're going to settle. And then what's going to happen is 6-12 months, you're going to be in the same position again because you joined a company that wasn't your dream job because you didn't build a list. So this is what you do. The first, a great tool that I've used before that I recommend you using. It's not the only tool, but it's one that helps, and it's free to use. It's called Crunchbase. So Crunchbase, it's specific for technology. I think it's crunchbase.com, and I believe they have a free trial. And what you can do here is when you go to Crunchbase, you can look at the size of the company. What stage are they? Are they Series A, Series B? Are they public? Whatever they are. You can see what type of industries that they serve that aligns to the product and the buyers. You can learn more about, you know, are they a company that you really want to work with? You know, by looking at the size and the stage, the product, and they might have things around the CEO or not, but there's a lot of ways where you can quickly build a list around it, and especially if you're targeting venture capital companies, this is a great way to help do that, where you could see what stage they are, and also when do they receive funding. That can go into things. So Crunchbase is a great tool I recommend using. LinkedIn, you know, if you're watching this, I'd be very surprised if you're not on LinkedIn, but if you're not on LinkedIn, get on there. And LinkedIn's a great way to look at company profiles. Also a great way to assess out the leadership team by looking at their profiles and your potential leaders that you'd be working for. Get a sense of, you know, just by looking at LinkedIn, you can get a feel for how they think about marketing and branding as a company. Because as a sales rep, if a company doesn't have marketing dialed in, that's going to make your job harder. Doesn't mean you can't be successful, but it's a factor. So you can assess that on LinkedIn. You can get a sense of the size of the company because you can see their employee counts. I believe you could see on LinkedIn how the company's trending in terms of headcount over the last couple of years. So if the company's growing, that helps you know there's some things that are working well. Not the only thing you look for, but it's one of the indicators. So LinkedIn's great. You can also see, let's say, you don't want a CEO that's very socially active and speaking on political issues. I mean, and some CEOs are like that. And that's what they want to do. But if that's not your cup of tea, on LinkedIn, you can see that to get a sense of how they are and how they communicate in a public forum like that. So LinkedIn's a great tool to use at your disposal. Next is Glassdoor. Glassdoor, it's a free tool. You can look up companies that you might be targeting. You look up their website. On Glassdoor, it shows, you know, a CEO approval rating. I believe there's also an engagement score of how employees feel about that. You could see anonymous reviews, and they do a good job of soliciting feedback so they can get a sense of the culture and things behind closed doors. Bigger companies are going to have more data than smaller companies. So just something to know, if a company doesn't have great reviews, but they're very small, if they just had one bad review, don't rule them out automatically. But it is a data point that you might want to take into an interview to ask them about, right? So this is a great way to help you qualify companies in and out, as well as the CEO, but then also help you craft interview questions for both the good and the bad that you see in the reviews that are on there. This is a very popular site that a lot of sales reps are using to get a sense of how well the sales team is performing. It's called RepVue, REPVUE, I believe. But it's a free site. It's anonymous sourcing, and the way it works is you go on the site if you're an account executive, you're a sales rep, or whatever your role is, and you can give anonymous feedback on how good the product is, how much of the team is getting to quota, right? What's it like to sell there? So some really good stuff that's coming from that. So that's a great tool for you to use to help you assess what are some good companies that have things figured out or are in the process of figuring it out for their team. It's going to be harder to get data for small companies there, but if you're looking at large companies, there's some great insights here for you to see how they do that, because there's a rating that they get based off the data that's put in there. Next one, G2. G2 is a great website because it's all about helping companies assess different vendors. So if you're looking at selling at a company that's selling marketing automation software, you can go on G2 and you could search marketing automation software, and you could see all the vendors in the space. You can see the reviews for the different vendors, so you can assess strengths and weaknesses. You could see how they compare themselves from a pricing standpoint. So all these things are incredible insights to help you assess, is this company a supplement or is this company a painkiller? Because it's very different, right? So G2 is great. And is it also, are they selling in a crowded space or is it a new emergent space? And there's pros and cons to both. But this can help you identify what you're really working with this product in the environment that they're selling in. And last but not least, the most powerful tool that you could use to help you identify the right companies is use your network. Your network is key here. And the old phrase can't be more true here. Your network is your net worth. And what that means is you can leverage your network to assess out, hey, what are the companies that I should be working at? One of the great things that I have from my background is people that I grew up, rose through the ranks early in my sales career, are now leaders that are executives at other companies and things. So now I have a network of people that I could tap into to ask, hey, what's the deal with this company here, right? Or, hey, what's the deal with this leader here? So you can get a sense of, this through your network, right? And then using your network, it will also accelerate you getting interviews, which I'll cover next. But tap into your network to really get a sense of, hey, is how the CEO communicates on LinkedIn, is that how they really are, or is that just a show? Those things are really, really important to help you avoid a landmine and joining the wrong company. So these are some resources for you to use. Again, it's free for you to do all these things, and this will help you really get a head start on building your list. The list should be no less than 25 companies and no more than 50. If it's more than 50, you might need some work to fine tune your job description, because that means you may not be specific enough on what you're looking for. For example, if you have a Series A company in there and a Series D, that probably means you're not specific on the stage. If you have a company where their compensation range is $100,000 and $300,000, of course, everyone wants more. You want to be realistic of what you're targeting, or you want to tighten up your ranges here. So then this list is specific as possible. Because let's think about what we're doing as a sales professional. I'm sure you're picking up on this already. One of the first things to do to be successful in any selling environment is you need to identify your ideal customer profile, also known as your ICP. And your ideal customer profile is what's the best customer for you to sell to. This is what you're doing here. When you're writing the job description, you're identifying who your ICP is, right? Then once you build the list, this is your lead generation process. Just like as a sales professional, you're identifying the targets that you're going to call on to try to close a deal. You're doing the same thing here, because it is a sales cycle, whether you like it or not. That's how it works. And you have to think about it objectively in that lens, because if you don't, emotions and stress are going to run high, and you might make a decision to join the wrong company for the wrong reasons, which I'd hate for you to do. So we've identified our dream job description. We've now built a list of targets, companies to go after. Pause the video if you need to build this out. Take the time to get your target list. This is really important. And then last but not least, let's get the job. Right? Let's work our way to landing our dream job. And look, I call it a dream job because it's something you're aspiring for. And what does that mean? It means it's going to be tough to get because you're aspiring for something that's a stretch for you. And if it's a stretch for you, they're also going to perceive it as a stretch for you. So that means you have to do things differently to land your dream job than you would going to any other job. And one of the first things I'll say that I've yet to hear something different in the last 12 to 24 months is applying for jobs is a waste of your time. That's the experience that I've heard time and time again, is that if you're going to spend any time on that, spend as little to no time on it, because it's not effective, because all you're just doing is bucketing yourself with everyone else. So the first thing to know is think about it like a sales process, and know that if you're really going after a dream job with an aggressive compensation plan and the right culture and the right boss, the right product, that means that's going to be in high demand because there's other people that are going to be targeting it. So first thing you're going to do is outreach. Now, might sound simple, but think about outreach. What do you do in a sales cycle? The way to help yourself win bigger deals and win more deals is you try to get access to the decision makers, get access to power or the executives early in the sales process. This is the same thing. So this is where I recommend, number one, use your network to leverage second-degree connections, third-degree connections with hiring managers at the company, because your goal isn't to get an interview. Your goal is to have a conversation, and that's different. Your goal is to not get an interview. Your goal is to have a conversation, because the first thing you're trying to do after you outreach is you're trying to qualify if this is really in your dream job criteria before you want to commit to a long interview process, because interviewing there's a lot of work that goes into it. So do that outreach. And if you might have not have people in your network, people that you can leverage for referrals, be creative. This is where I say be a peacock. And what is a peacock? A peacock is an animal that stands out from the crowd. If anyone's seen a peacock, its feathers are beautiful and massive. You got to stand out from the crowd. So when everyone's zigging, you zag. So I'll give you an example of something that I did early in my career to help me land an interview. I didn't have networks of people in a specific company that I was trying to target getting into, or a handful of companies that were on my target list that I built. So what I did was I had a custom t-shirt made, true story, with my favorite quote on it. And I had those made, and I stuffed them in FedEx envelopes, and I included a letter with my resume showing them, hey, my interest in the company, and I personalized the letter to each CEO that I sent them out to. And by just doing that, I was able to land interviews in multiple companies. And it wasn't that my resume was better on paper. It was that I stood out from the crowd. And when they're looking at that, they're saying, hey, this person can think outside the box. That probably means they could think outside the box in terms of selling, right? So think about that. So do things differently and approach it like a sales cycle, and try to connect with them through multiple channels. So the step one is doing the outreach and how to do it and be different in the outreach. I said this already. I'll say it again. Next thing you're trying to do is qualify the opportunity. So in a quick conversation, again, you're not looking for a long call, just something that's 15 minutes talking to the hiring manager, the decision maker, and all you're trying to suss out is understanding what they need, what they're looking for, right? And what's the right person for them, and then comparing that to your job description to see if it's a fit. And then by the end of the call, you and that person that you speak with should be in agreement of whether or not it makes sense to go to the next step of the process. A big shift I want you to make is don't go into that call trying to sell them on you. Number one, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not being objective about your criteria that you spent time doing. And then number two, you're going to come off as desperate to the hiring manager. Right? Because the best people aren't desperate for jobs. So don't do that. Even if you're excited about it, right? It's okay to show you're eager. It's okay to show your excitement, but just be careful of how you communicate, and that doesn't come off as if you're desperate and you need the job, right? So after you qualify the opportunity, you go through the interview process. Now the interview process, it's going to be different for every company. There's a lot of things that you should do to make sure you execute that. I'm not going to go into that detail today. If that's something that you want further videos on, shoot it in the comments, and I can put those together at a later date. But know that you're going through an interview process. And because you're targeting 25 to 50 companies at a time, you should have several companies that you're interviewing with at the same time. And you're doing that intentionally. Number one, to remove your stress and emotions from the equation, because you have more leverage, because you have more opportunities that you're pursuing. Helps you compare apples to apples against your criteria to help you make the best decision for you and your family, right? And continue to work the process. And the end goal of working the interview process, as we all know, is you want to get the offer, right? If you get the offer, you're in a really good place, because obviously that shows that they want you bad enough that they're willing to put their money on the table, and that's what they're doing with the offer. But don't skip the next step, which is what most reps do. And the next step of the process is to negotiate. Negotiate the offer, or do your due diligence on the offer. Make sure that it's fair. You already did work to know what your compensation number is, and hopefully you're communicating that early in the cycle so that it's not a surprise to them or you. But I have heard horror stories of reps getting lowballed in their job offers, but work to negotiate. Now, what are the levers that you can negotiate? You can negotiate, obviously, your salary, your commission. You can negotiate your territory in some occasions. You can negotiate how much equity you have. You can negotiate the structure of how they give you that equity, whether it's a 4-year cliff or a 3-year cliff or a 2-year cliff. Those are different things. I'm happy to break those down if you guys want a different video, right? Do they have a severance package, right? Is that something you want to negotiate, right? It's a very real thing that can happen. So there's all these variables that can go into it, go into negotiating the offer to make sure that you're excited about it. And then if you do that, you're going to land your dream job, right? So if you do the outreach, differentiate yourself, qualify the opportunity against your job description, go into the interview and crush the interview. And there's a lot of things that go into that. And take the offer, but make sure you're understanding that's a fair offer and that you're negotiating appropriately so that it's aligned, right? And if you do that, you get your dream job. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully it provides a lot of clarity in terms of a great process to help you not only find the right companies to work for and sell for, but also make sure that you're removing the stress and anxiety out of the process. This isn't a complex framework, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of work that goes into this. Sometimes people say interviewing can be a full-time job, and that's the reality. It is. But if you want to land your dream job, which a lot of other people are probably going to want as well, you're going to have to stand out from the crowd, and a lot of that just comes down to the work you're willing to put in. So I hope this was helpful. This was the end of the 3-part series where I walked you through how to get clear on your current state in all aspects of your life so that you can put an action plan in place to crush it, how you can build an action plan that breaks down a complex quota into a simple plan, and then last, helping you find a dream job. But there's one more thing I want to share with you before we wrap up. The feedback that I've been getting from the content from this has been really valuable. This tells me that there's a lot of other information that you guys can get value out of. So I want you to look out for an email to come to your inbox tomorrow where I'm going to share with you additional information and a lot of other value that I'm going to provide for you going forward. Thank you again for the time. Looking forward to seeing you.